This is our third night at Blemf, and it's going to be a brilliant one. I have tonight three people to introduce, all of whom are you will be astounded by. The first is Jean-Bernard Serin, who is the gentleman over here who's waving at you. Jean-Bernard serves as assistant professor and director of the vocal program in the Department of Music at Cornell University. And his research explores the history of Haitian classical music. He is an extraordinary baritone by any count, and he performs with leading early music ensembles throughout the United States. He tours with his crossover music group, Cuento Musique, and he is artistic director of the Lisette project. Next on the list is Nicholas Matthew, over here, whom if you were here 2 minutes ago, you've already witnessed some of his brilliance. Nicholas is professor of music and Richard and Rhoda Goldman Distinguished Professor in the Humanities at, oh my God, I didn't write it down. Oh, at Berkeley, UC Berkeley. I knew that. He studied with Malcolm Bilson at Cornell, which some people here might appreciate. And tonight, you will hear him on three instruments. This is our first time ever having three keyboards at a performance at Blemf in 31 years. You will hear him on the harpsichord, the forte piano, and the modern piano. And then third here, Rebecca Dirksen, who is a dear friend of mine. She's an ethnomusicologist. She works across the spectrum of musical genres in Haiti and its diaspora. She is Laura Bolton Professor of Ethnomusicology at Indiana University, and she is author of After the Dance, The Drums Are Heavy, Carnival, Politics, and Musical Engagement in Haiti. I give you Jean-Bernard, Nicholas, and Rebecca.
How are you doing?
Good.
All right.
Testing.
Yeah, everybody can hear me? Excellent. Well, welcome to Bloomington. We are so delighted to have you both here. Welcome to everybody in the audience. We are thrilled about this presentation tonight that is not just a concert, but I think it is going to be a multimodal experience. And so we're thrilled about this opportunity. We have a few moments before the program begins in order to talk about this project more broadly, because I think it's doing some really crucial work, especially in this particular moment, and as we envision what happens beyond 2025, what has come before 2025, and so I wanted to help us set the scene a little bit.
Sure.
What is the Lisette project?
Yeah. First, hello everyone, and thank you to the Bloomington Early Music Festival for having us here. I've long wanted to visit this town, to visit Indiana University, so thank you, Rebecca. I founded the Lisette Project in 2020, partially in response to the critical moment we were having as a classical music industry in the post-George Floyd world, right? Where I, as a Haitian musician who had long been performing music from my country, felt like it was time to take a more formal historical approach. And I decided to do that through the oldest song in Haitian Creole, Lisette quitte la plaine. So the Lisette Project started as a way for me to understand the history of this song. I found a lot of sources that talked about the song as a poem from early Haiti and as a folk song from Louisiana. And those two sources often would not talk about talk about each other. So it was a very separate field of scholarship. So I wanted to rectify that and have one research project that told the story completely. And then in doing so, I found versions of it in France and versions of it in modern Haiti. And there wasn't one article that talked about all of them. And it became clear that we should, one, make a film, because I like films, and I feel like that's a really great way of making information accessible beyond the ivory tower, as it were. I wasn't in the ivory tower at the time. But, and then, two, having made the film, it was like, well, we have a concert now, so we should tour the thing. So now we're like a touring lecture recital, and I had the opportunity to mostly give this to intimate audiences like the one we have here. And then 3, and this is the part that is in development, well, I guess there's 3 and 4. 3 is an album. We're working on an album to get the music out that way. And then 4, creating this program has meant arranging, composing, recomposing, reconstructing, reimagining music that was largely unavailable. And part of our mission is to make this music available to other people who might want to perform it. So that will look like an anthology.
Thank you. We're going to encounter a series of characters through these songs this evening, and one in particular that I'd like to focus on is kind of the main character, Lisette. Who was Lisette as this figure evolves over time and geographies?
Yeah, I love that question. And I'd like to complicate it a little bit, because we might ask ourselves, who is the most important character in Lisette quitte la plaine? So Lisette quitte la plaine is a story of a man who has lost his beloved. So who's the most important character? Is it the beloved, or is it the person who sings the song? So the context is, we have an enslaved man, a sugarcane worker, who sings this song about a woman that he's lost, and experiences all sorts. He's depressed. He doesn't want to dance. He doesn't want to beat the bambula. He doesn't want to dance the kalinda. He doesn't look at other women. He's lost basically his will to live in the first few verses. In the final verse, she returns and he says, "Please come back quickly." He experiences anxiety about what other men she might encounter when she goes into the city, right? So in many ways, there are these archetypes that we find in Haitian literature over centuries. And the man, to me, is like the viejo. We have like this worker, this field worker, right, who is away from his family, right? And then Lisette herself is the Haitian woman, the archetypal Haitian woman, who in Haiti, often has more mobility. You think of the Manasara, right, of the woman who is like, the Manasara, these are merchant women who have a home and a farm, but often will go and travel many, many miles away from home to sell, to both buy and sell produce. So there's this sort of stationary man and then this mobile woman in a way. So these are the archetypes that resonate with me when I think about who this song is. In terms of the way these tropes were operating in the 18th century, Lisette is a parody in some ways of the European pastoral, specifically as found in Jean-Jacques Rousseau's Le Devin du Village. You might consider, so when we talk about the pastoral, oftentimes those are stories. It's a love story that takes place in the countryside, often between a man of lower status and a woman of higher status. Our opera lovers in the audience might think of L'Elisir d'Amore. You have your country bumpkin Nemorino, who's in love with Adina and can't imagine that she might love him. And then in comes Dulcamara and convinces Nemorino that, ooh, you can actually achieve this love. So in that way, Saint-Domingue, which is itself a very European place, the richest French colony, creates literature, creates theater that harkens back to these French styles. So as a pastoral, Lisette is this more mobile woman who is in a relationship with this less mobile man.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. For the two of you, I'd like to expand this a little bit. We were speaking earlier today about understandings of the metropole, of peripheries, of destabilizing what the center is. This project, I think, does this so eloquently, and I wonder whether either or both of you might like to elaborate on what it means to listen specifically to this set of songs, and then explore what it means to hear Haiti in the United States in North America, across the hemisphere, in Europe, now in 2025, but through that history over time that takes us from approximately 1740 to the current moment and beyond?
I think that obviously JB can speak most eloquently about how it relates to contemporary Haitian experience. But for me, it's particularly interesting because I was educated, and I suppose I'm an expert in European music. And in a way, this program encompasses that period of European music that you might think of as common practice. You know, it goes from roughly what was traditionally known as the Baroque until contemporary music in the early 20th century. And yet it gives us a completely different slice of that kind of music. Not, I would hasten to emphasize, because it's presenting some quirky, marginal, fringe music that was, twiddling away on the margins of people's fundamentally European musical knowledge, but rather because this program actually presents music that was absolutely mainstream and produced in some of the wealthiest parts of the globe. And the trajectory that this song describes in its journey, I suppose, from French colonized Saint-Domingue, sort of dispersed via the Haitian Revolution through North America, and then, in a sense, back reclaimed and reappropriated by a generation of nationalist, quote-unquote, Haitian artists. That story is the story of our modernity, really. And it's vital to know, and this is something that I have come to know more and more as I've done this project, that Haiti and Saint-Domingue before it were some of the wealthiest parts of the globe with this teeming, vast public culture. In fact, in the 18th century, there were more opera houses per capita in Port-au-Prince than there were in Paris, right? So imagine the dispersal, not just of goods and instruments, but of people and culture and musics. And that music, as we'll see in this amazingly artfully designed program that JB has put together, brings people to Louisiana, to Philadelphia. It inspires generations of what we might think of as folk music, and then the music of African American women who collected it in the 19th and 20th centuries. That, in a sense, all of this part of America's own fraught history in the 19th century is bound up with Haiti and what Haiti was in relation to what we might think of as a European centre or a metropole. But of course, it's not a periphery. What we're talking about here is the very centre of what we might think of as European classical music.
Would you like to add a little bit more about the connections to Charleston, Philadelphia, New Orleans, as we were talking about earlier today?
Yeah. So the title of this program is Lisette, A Song's Journey from Haiti and Back. The first version starting in Haiti and then making its way to France. But actually the first version was actually published in Philadelphia in 1797, 40 years after it had been written in Saint-Domingue. And in the 1790s and through 1804, as the Haitian Revolution began, was fought, and was won, you had thousands of people who fled to Cuba, to Puerto Rico, to Charleston, Boston, New York, and of course, New Orleans. So with them went their music and their stories.
We anticipated a little bit about what the concert scene looked like in 1740s, 1750s, 1760s, Saint-Domingue. Can you put us on the street there? What would it feel like for any one of us to walk down that street and hear the sounds around us, be immersed in whatever musical expression is going on? What would we see? What would we smell?
What would we smell? What would we hear? Yeah. This is where, a question like that, there are a lot of ways of telling this story. And on the one hand, we are excited about, all this opera per capita, in this wealthy French colony, the pearl of the Antilles, right? That was Haiti. And yet, we have a slaveholding society, wildly violent slaveholding society in which 90% of the people on the island are enslaved. Right? And then there might be like 5% who are free people of color, and then 5% who are French people. And those numbers are not exact, I made them up, but they're close. They're close, don't quote me. They're very close. So in that society, my colleague Maria Ryan, who studies this time period, tries to imagine the kind of anxiety that the elites in this society would have to have in sort of preserving their position at the top, right? But also, so yes, and also you should consider that among the enslaved folks, chattel slavery in Haiti was so bad that the life expectancy was like between 10 and 15 years. So they were constantly having to bring new people from West Africa to the island. And of course, there is a native group of Creoles. The term Creole in Haiti, as opposed to Criollo in South America, Creole is just anyone who's born on the island. So that might be a person of color, and it might also be a French citizen colonist whose family had been there for hundreds of years. They're all Creoles.
Like the Gottschalks.
Like the Gottschalks. But you asked me, who are we? So we want to imagine a wealthy plantation in which you have women who are mostly at home, who have to learn instruments, who have to play the piano, right? Who part of their education and their daily life is learning music and playing it at home. You have societies that get together in salons and sing for each other, right? So a popular song like Lisette quitte la plaine could happen in either of those contexts, right? In a saloon, right, which might be more, I guess, more loose than the two contexts I said before. But Maria Ryan likes to talk about how there is evidence of people whistling Handel themes in the field, right? Imagining that classical music, while perhaps not intended for everyone, still sounds all over the island, right? So when we talk about a song like Lisette quitte la plaine and try to imagine who wrote it, there is a body of folk literature that itself has a lot of love themes, right? And then there is the European pastoral, which would have been popular in these salons. So you have the native, enslaved, free people of color, those populations who are singing music from all over the place. And then you also have these Europeans in their salons and in their opera houses who are also making this music.
Can I add something to that? I think something really important that is an inference from what JB just said is that we might imagine that this sort of heterogeneity, this exciting spread of different musics into different kinds of people and different parts of society might be distinctive to a colony or a tropical island. But actually, I think what this teaches us is the way music works in this period, right? I mean, I think it's really important that we remember that European classical music is really an invention of the late 19th century, and music spreads in very unusual ways. That's what's wonderful about doing a project like this by comparison with, say, tracing literary sources or the visual arts, is that music, of course, sticks to people's bodies differently from those arts. It goes into us, it inhabits us as earworms and things that we can hum in places that we perhaps might not think they're intended for. And these distinctions between what we might think of as vernacular or popular art and high art, what we might think of as what became European classical music, really not just don't hold, but are fundamentally eroded by the kinds of music and the kinds of musical transmission that we're talking about in this period. And there's been some beautiful work done on, for example, how the contradanse as a French form was transformed into contradanza and various kinds of Latin dances, the calinda, which is in fact referenced, in the Lisette poem and so on. And of course, how do dancers spread? How does music spread? It spreads in people's bodies. It spreads in social situations that perhaps are less easily managed, less easily governable than in other situations. And that teaches us something not just about Haiti or Haitian music, it teaches us something about music and how music spreads.
I love that.
We were talking a little bit about genre. And how we're going to have an experience of many of these as we turn back around to the same theme. Yeah. Would you like to walk us through a few of the examples that we're going to hear this evening?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a thought experiment. If we consider genre and also different types of so yes, genre in terms of like country music and pop music, but genre in terms of popular music versus classical music versus folk music, right? Let's take those three categories, for example. Is that 2 minutes? Maybe a question I might ask the audience is, of the 6 versions of Lisette that you'll hear tonight, or the 5 versions of Lisette that you'll hear tonight, what genre is it, right? The first being, and if we imagine that folk music is something that has, of unknown authorship, right, that is passed down primarily through oral tradition, and that has a variability in form, either in words or in terms of the melody, right? And then classical music as something that is more static, that is written down, that might occur in a certain kind of social context. And then the third being popular music, which is more commercial in nature. And you find all 3 of those, and the same ones embodying different of those categories, depending on who's writing it and who's listening to it. And since all of you will be here for this concert, maybe you'll discover it along with us later.
And as we conclude and get ready to enjoy our experience listening, how would you encourage all of us convened today in this room full of highly skilled listeners to approach their experience with this program this evening?
Definitely your one, Jake.
Yeah, I guess so. I'd like you to have an open mind. You know, I was truly surprised. You know, when we made the film and we were interviewing folks, I came out with a completely different conclusion than what I started with. You know, I started this project thinking that Haitian traditional music sounded really Latin, and thought, wow, because Haitians we don't think of ourselves as Latin, right? And then I came out of the project realizing, wow, actually Latin music sounds like Haiti. And that same statement is true of classical traditions in the United States and also in France, that Haiti is part of a larger nexus of musical traditions that echo each other, right? And I hope that you are willing to be challenged and for your perspective to be open alongside myself. And I want to say that I've been really honored to have many collaborators on this project, but many collaborators from a lot of different places. You know, to have Nick with me here from England and Michelle with me here from the United States and myself from Haiti, in many ways we embody the spread of cultures and people that we'll be talking about and singing and playing about for you in a few minutes.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow, don't fall.
Yes, careful.
Will you fix the